Let's go back to the 1930s, into the heart of the Great Depression, where kitchens weren't just for cooking, but arenas of resilience and creativity. The lingering scent of wood smoke mixed with simmering beans filled humble horse homes, replacement of luxury with necessity. Amid rationing and scarcity, your mama mastered the art of thrifty cooking, turning simple staples like potatoes, beans, and seasonal vegetables into hearty, comforting meals that stretched every last penny. Canning jars lined the pantry shelves, preserving harvests with a promise. The clatter of cast-iron skillets on the stove echoed a rhythm of making do, where leftovers were reborn as new dishes, and every crumb was sacred. Night before preparations, like mixing batter or slow-cooking stews, saved fuel and time. This wasn't just about food. It was about hope, grit, and transformation, where scarcity challenged your grandma to create magic from modesty. From these basics grew a tradition of resourcefulness that still inspires today, a reminder of how hunger and hardship can spark some of the most soulful, enduring flavors. Next, strain the dust off Grandma's favorite recipes and let's uncover the simple joys hidden in every bite. A waft of warm cinnamon and burnt sugar fills the tiny kitchen, a frugal symphony from the 1930s. Depression-era bread pudding was pure alchemy. Day-old bread cubes soaked in meager milk or water, sprinkled with just a pinch of cinnamon, sometimes sweetened with a scrap of molasses or a spoon of brown sugar. No fancy vanilla bean paste, no cream or butter, just the remnants of yesterday's loaf, transformed into a humble yet heartwarming dessert. Families bowed to necessity. This was comfort born of scarcity. The texture was often dense, slightly dry, but every forkful carried a quiet dignity, whispering stories of resilience in tough times. Jump to today's upscale kitchens where bread pudding has morphed into a canvas for indulgence. Artisanal brioche or challah replaces that frugal old white bread, soaked lavishly in rich cream and eggs. Exotic dried fruits, tart cherries, plump figs, and fragrant nutmeg, cardamom, and star anise swirl through the custard. Caramelized sugar crusts add crunch, while a drizzle of bourbon sauce elevates this dish into gourmet decadence. Yet, despite these luxuries, the simple, scraped-together version still resonates deeper in the heart's pantry. The Depression pudding reminds us how warmth, care, and a pinch of cinnamon can turn even the humblest scraps into soulful comfort. It's less about opulence, more about the quiet magic of making do. As we savor the layers of today's puddings, that frugal spirit lingers, waiting for the next memory to rise from the crumb. You bite into a flaky crust expecting the familiar, sweet, tart burst of apple, but instead, crunch. It's shredded green sassafras leaves, cleverly seasoned with cinnamon and sugar, mimicking apple's crispness without the fruit. During the Great Depression, when fresh apples were scarce and expensive, inventive cooks turned to this woodland green to fool their families' taste buds. Sassafras, with its faintly spicy root beer-like aroma, was shredded fine, mixed with cracker crumbs and baked into pies that looked just like the real deal. Your mom's mock apple pie was equal parts survival and sly humor, pranking the palate while stretching scarce resources. Contrast that with today's pies, brimming with slices from the orchard's finest apples, tart Granny Smiths, sweet Fuji's, or buzzing Honeycrisps. The smell of a genuine apple pie baking is pure comfort, a sign of abundance and tradition kept alive in every bite. Yet the mock apple pie's legacy remains a testament to resilience and creativity when life demanded more imagination than ingredients. It's a story told in crisp leaves and cracked crust, whispering how families adapted, laughed, and made do amid hardship. In your kitchen now, real apple pies rise golden and fragrant in your oven, but that old sassafras cracker trick still offers a wink from the past, reminding you that sometimes the sweetest memories grow from the simplest, scrappiest ingredients. Tomato skins curling away from plump, ripe fruit used to be more than garden scraps. They were the secret ingredient to a pot of rich, simmering soup. The kitchen filled with the warm, tangy aroma of tomato peels boiled down slowly with onion, celery, and a splash of broth, transforming what many saw as waste into a deep, savory stew. Families leaned over the stove, stirring the bubbling pot, knowing every bit counted in a time when nothing was wasted. This was thrift, cooked with heart. The vibrant red skins, usually destined for compost or bin, became the base for a simple yet hearty meal. Grandma's recipe required no fresh tomatoes, just the skins and leftover seeds simmered until soft and pureed, until smooth rheumatics whispered hints of garlic and herbs, elevating humble garden remnants into comforting nourishment that filled belly and soul. Today, kitchen scraps like tomato skins rarely make it back to the stove. With produce prepped and peeled in a rush or tossed as refuse, the age-old art of thrifty soup making is a faint echo. Yet it reminds us of a mindset once universal, a deep appreciation for every morsel. From garden to table, nothing was frivolous, everything was potential. This simple tomato peel stew stands as a warm invitation to savor and honor food, a taste of a slower, more mindful era now blurred by convenience. And as leftovers meld into tomorrow's meal, the legacy of this humble soup lingers, quietly urging us to reclaim the comfort of kitchen resourcefulness. Remember peanut butter and molasses sandwiches? Those sticky treasures from the rationed pantries of the 30s and 40s? They weren't fancy, nor were they designed to impress. Just two humble staples pressed between thick bread slices, molasses oozing dark and sweet beneath the creamy peanut butter. This was the fuel of hard-working kids and adults alike. A quick protein-carb punch with a deep molasses warmth that hinted at simpler, scrappier times. No avocado toast or artisan spreads needed, just the reliable, hearty combo that carried you through your day. Molasses, with its smoky, bittersweet flavor, was a cheap sweetener, often mixed into everything from baked beans to pies, while peanut butter brought protein and richness that filled out the meal. In frugal households, this sandwich was more than food. It was comfort and sustenance in one. Even Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was said to be a fan of peanut butter sandwiches, proving their staying power beyond mere austerity. Fast forward to now, and avocado toast has taken its place. A creamy, luxuriously rich smear of mashed avocado on crusty artisan bread, topped sometimes with everything bagel seasoning, a drizzle of olive oil, or a sprinkle of chili flakes. Trendy, vibrant, Instagram-ready. It carries its own quiet powers as a symbol of modern foodie culture, health-conscious and upscale. But at their core, both dishes tell stories of hunger met with what's at hand. Pantry staples transformed into small joys that carry you through. The peanut butter and molasses sandwich is nostalgia on bread. Avocado toast is the evolution of that same impulse, richer in flavor and texture, but kin in spirit. Imagine a kitchen where nothing is wasted, where even the water drained from boiling potatoes becomes a secret ingredient. In lean times, your grandmother's bread was a humble masterpiece made not just from flour and water, but with the starchy, nutrient-rich potato water folded into the dough. This simple trick wasn't about gourmet flair, but survival. Stretching resources, making bread tender, moist, and a bit more substantial when wheat was scarce. The peasant loaves were dense, with a pale crust and a flavor that whispered stories of hard times and sturdy hands. Fast forward to today's kitchens, where bread making is an art form. Artisan sourdoughs reigns supreme with lively starters bubbling away on counters. Crafted from heritage grains and wild yeasts, these loaves are a celebration of patience and complexity, crusts crackling with caramel hues, open crumb structures, and tangy depths that only long fermentation can bring. Bakers now curate every element, from the mineral-rich water to heirloom wheats, celebrating taste and texture in a way almost unimaginable in potato water bread days. Yet, beneath the flourish of today's foodie trends lies a humble truth: potato water bread. Plain, resourceful, unpretentious, championed survival over style. It's a symbol of resilience, reminding us that sometimes nourishment was about what you had, not what you dreamed of. That same spirit lingers in every hearty slice of bread, even in our trendy loaves, a tether to the past when simplicity meant everything. The next time you tear into a crusty sourdough, think of that potato water bread. It's not just bread, but a link across generations, from necessity to craft. The clink of a tin can opening, a soft metallic scent. Spam was once a luxury during the lean depression years, an unexpected treasure in pantries. You'd slice that pink block of canned pork, tossing it into a bubbling casserole dish loaded with elbow macaroni and whatever canned peas or corn were on hand. The kitchen would fill with the comforting warmth of a baked, creamy concoction that stretched meat's value and fed a family on a shoestring. The slick, salty flavor of Spam soaked into every noodle, a humble taste of thrift turned tradition. Spam casserole wasn't just food, it was innovation in scarcity, turning shelf-stable survival into something cozy and oddly delicious. Families depended on it because fresh meat was a rare treat, and Spam was dependable. The recipe cards from mid-century cookbooks touted it as a must-try, and Mom's hands knew exactly how to layer it for maximum satisfaction. With a crunchy topping of crumbs or cheese, it was comfort food straight from the can. Fast forward decades, and Spam has reemerged, not just as retro relic, but culinary curiosity. Chefs now plate it seared, glazed, even elevated with exotic sauces. Meanwhile, hipsters embrace it ironically, turning some casserole back into a kitschy icon at potlucks and vintage diners alike. It's a reminder that what was once necessity birthed unexpected favorites, flavors born from resilience. From Depression-era luxury to quirky revival, Spam casserole tells a story of survival on the shelf and revival on the table. The oven timer dings, and tomorrow's memories are ready to bake. The kitchen smells faintly of cinnamon and warmth, but it's not the rich, buttery aroma you expect. No eggs here, just the humble magic of mashed bananas or applesauce binding oats together. During the Great Depression, eggs were precious, rationed luxuries, too rare for everyday baking. Instead, home cooks adapted. Oatmeal cookies emerged as simple, hearty treats, their texture soft but chewy, sweetness subtle and honest. Your grandma's worn recipe card doesn't call for butter or vanilla extract, just oats, sugar, a pinch of salt, and that secret binder from the fruit bowl. These cookies carried a gentler sweetness, not from overload, but from care and resourcefulness. Fast forward to today's kitchen counters, gleaming with stainless steel and lined with glossy recipe books. Modern oatmeal cookies are decadently egg-rich, loaded with melted butter, brown sugar, and often a scoop of rich vanilla to elevate every bite. They're chewy, dense, and boldly sweet, an indulgence that your Depression-era ancestors would marvel at, or maybe chuckle over. But that old-fashioned cookie, the one without eggs, had a soul born of scarcity, shaped by a time when every crumb counted. The past recipe wasn't just baking, it was survival disguised as comfort, and the subtle fruit undertone, it whispered stories of resilience, improvisation, and a sweetness that didn't need eggs. To kidney bean loaf, a staple during the Depression era, was the ultimate symbol of frugality and nourishment. Imagine a modest kitchen, the smell of sautéed onions mixing with cooked kidney beans mashed into a hearty paste, breadcrumbs, a splash of milk, and just the right dash of seasoning. Bind the mixture. Formed into a rectangular loaf, it went into a hot oven, baking till it turned firm and golden on the edges. No fancy meat here, just humble beans, stretching every bit of protein to feed a family on a tight budget. The texture was dense, the flavor straightforward but comforting, a taste of survival and resourcefulness. Fast forward to today's vegan meatloaf. It's a whole different ball game. Gone are the days of simple bean mash. Now, this plant-based feast layers complex flavors and textures, lentils, walnuts, mushrooms, and oat flour, mingling with smoked paprika, liquid smoke, and nutritional yeast. Herbs give it depth, and a tangy tomato glaze crowns the loaf with savory sweetness. Far from mere sustenance, it's crafted for abundance and celebration, reflecting a cultural shift where plant protein is not just rationed, but relished. Yet beneath the modern flourish lingers a whisper of those Depression kitchens, a reverent nod to not wasting valuable protein, to making every bite count. While times and tastes have evolved, the spirit of kidney bean loaf beats on, a culinary heirloom linking scarcity to plenty, tradition to innovation. Wild dandelion salad, the humble hero of backyard foragers, was a crisp ode to nature's resilience. You'd spot those jagged sunlit leaves poking up between lawn blades, bittersweet, peppery, a thrill to the palate. Gathered fresh, rinsed under cold, running water, then tossed with a straightforward dressing, a squeeze of lemon, a drizzle of olive oil, salt, and a touch of honey. Nothing fancy, yet every bite was a wild crunch of earth and rain. Your grandma might have paired it with a fried egg or fresh cornbread, connecting table to soil without fuss. This salad was frugality and flavor tangled in dandelion greens. Fast forward to today's kale bowls, king of modern greens, vibrant, Cultivated kale often massaged with avocado or tahini until soft, then layered with quinoa, roasted chickpeas, and roasted sweet potatoes. Salads that flaunt trendy superfoods like goji berries, hemp seeds, or zesty citrus vinaigrettes. Instagram-ready meals, meticulously curated for health and aesthetic alike. It's indulgence wrapped in wellness. Luxurious layers of nutrients piled high in a bowl. Two salads, decades apart, the one foraged wild bounty, the other cultivated superfood status. Both celebrate green abundance, but the old dandelion salad whispers of simpler times, connection with the land and humble survival. Today's kale bowl sings of curated health trends and abundance rediscovered through science and style. A leafy bridge linking our meals to past and future alike. Back in the Depression era, ice cream was less a creamy indulgence and more a rare treat you savored with gratitude. When rationing reined in eggs and dairy was precious, homemade ice cream recipes adapted, eggless, thin, and stretched with water or milk substitutes. No fluffy scoops of custard here. Instead, family kitchens churned an almost frosty concoction that whispered cool relief rather than screamed richness. Think of the kitchen as a quiet battlefield of scarcity, where every ingredient was measured not just for taste, but for stretch. Water was often added to the custard base, and evaporated milk or powdered milk filled in when fresh dairy was scarce. Eggs, a luxury, were omitted to save them for vital baking. The result wasn't the silky velvet of modern ice cream, but a lightly creamy, icier texture. A simple pleasure wrapped in humble necessity. Fast forward to today's ice cream scene. Here, the story is one of pure, unapologetic abundance. Rich, made-from-scratch custards loaded with egg yolks and cream whirl in mixers, boasting decadence that was unimaginable back then. Artisanal brands like Genie's or local scoop shops highlight luxury with inventive flavors and texture you can sink a spoon into, far from the stretched thin scoops of the past. The contrast is dramatic. What was once a guarded treat has become an everyday luscious delight. Looking back, the Depression-era's eggless ice cream reminds us how resilience tasted, simple, stretched, yet treasured. And today, every creamy scoop carries that history, sweetened with the freedom and plenty we enjoy now. But can the modern melting richness ever fully capture the treasured scarcity of those simpler frozen days? The Brown Betty, a humble star of American dessert tables, was simplicity baked into comfort. Picture this: tart apple slices peeled and layered with just plain golden breadcrumbs, a sprinkle of sugar glistening on top. No fuss, no fancy spices, just enough buttery warmth to melt the edges into a sweet, soft hug. It smelled like a Sunday kitchen, cold, unpretentious, and quietly delicious. Contrast that with today's gourmet apple crumble, a virtuosic dance of textures and flavors. Nowadays, that crumb topping is a mosaic of toasted nuts, flaked oats, and spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, maybe even a dash of cardamom. It's toasted to golden perfection, offering both crunch and depth, an aromatic complexity that wakes up your palate with every bite. Whipped cream or vanilla bean ice cream is usually there to smooth the edges into decadence. But the Brown Betty's magic wasn't in the complexity. It was in the ritual. Making it was an act of love, layering each bite with a buttery breadcrumb crust that soaked up juice and melted softly with the apples below. The gourmet crumble dazzles the senses, yet sometimes you just want that whisper of the past, the soft, simple sweetness of a brown Betty on a quiet evening. It's a reminder that not every dessert needs to shout. Sometimes it just needs to comfort. In many mid-century kitchens, grape juice vinegar was more than just a condiment. It was the silent multitasker of the household. Imagine your mother pouring leftover homemade grape juice into a jar, adding a mother of vinegar, and letting it sit in the warm pantry corner for weeks. That tangy, slightly sweet vinegar became a staple for pickling cucumbers, brightening up salad dressings, and even scrubbing stubborn pots. Its natural acidity made it the go-to cleaner, slicing through grease and grime long before eco-friendly sprays hit the shelves. Grape juice vinegar wasn't bought in supermarkets. It was lovingly cultivated from your own backyard grapes or the neighbor's generous harvest. Each batch carried seasonal scents, deep purple, fruity, alive. Kids might have turned up their noses at the strong smell wafting through the kitchen, but you knew it meant thrift and care, transforming scraps and surplus into something useful and fresh. When the vinegar was diluted with water, it cleaned windows to a streak-free shine, disinfected cutting boards, and even deodorized the fridge. Today, that same vinegar story is less common. Kitchens now rely on specialized cleaning products and store-bought vinegars imported from far-flung places. The DIY spirit of turning grape juice into a versatile household hero is a fading chapter, a reminder of hands-on economies where nothing went to waste, and every jar had its story. That homemade grape juice vinegar was a quiet emblem of a time when resourcefulness flavored daily life. Next, we dive into the humble origins of lunchbox sandwiches, simple, packed with love, and full of surprise. Sugar scarcity in the 1940s turned kitchens into creative laboratories. Enter the Hoosier sugarless cake, a marvel from the Midwest where sugar rationing meant bakers had to innovate with what they had. Applesauce and mashed bananas weren't just humble pantry staples. They became the heart of sweetness. These fruits brought moisture and natural sugars, crafting a cake that was dense, fragrant, and softly spicy. Cinnamon and nutmeg swirling through the air. This was sweetness born from necessity, an intimate, comforting act of making do. Contrast that with today's zero-sugar aisle, lined with glossy boxes boasting no sugar added or free from carbs, sweetened by mysterious ingredients like sucralose, stevia, or erythritol. These are science-made substitutes carefully engineered to fool your taste buds. The texture often veers lighter, sometimes oddly synthetic, lacking that warm, home-baked aroma. There's no applesauce hug, just the clinical zing of sweeteners medicated into place. The Hoosier cake connects you to a time when scarcity led to resourcefulness and a closeness to the essence of food. Modern zero-sugar treats echo a different age, one of convenience, health trends, and undeniable chemical complexity. Both try to satisfy that sweet tooth, but the soul behind them diverges. One is heart, one is lab. As you bite into either, you're tasting a story of how sweetness reflects the world we live in. Sometimes natural, sometimes engineered, always evolving. Now, moving from kitchen chemistry to midday breaks, let's revisit the soda fountain rituals that quenched a different kind of craving. Cornmeal mush, the unsung hero of Depression-era breakfasts, simmered slowly on the stove, bubbling thick and hearty, the coarse yellow grains, coarse enough to feel under your spoon yet tender when cooked, filled kitchens with a comforting, earthy aroma that promised sustenance for a long day ahead. Served warm in a bowl, often with a pat of butter melting into golden rivulets or a splash of cream, it was plain but deeply satisfying. Sometimes, when the mush cooled and set, your mom would slice it thick and fry it in bacon grease or butter until the edges crisped, adding a smoky crunch that transformed simple mush into a prized treat. Cornmeal mush was a thrifty, nourishing staple. Affordable ground corn, boiled to a thick porridge, thick enough to hold a fork when cooled, but soft enough to spoon easily come morning. It filled bellies when budgets were tight, a testament to resilience on the kitchen stove. You can almost hear the low hum of the gas burner and smell the mingling scents of toasted bread and black coffee. Fast forward to today's bustling cafes, where grain bowls stacked with quinoa, chia, and kale parade as the breakfast elite. Yet every spoonful traces back to that yellow mush, the original coarse grain comfort food that fed generations. While trends swirl, that simple, humble mush reminds us nourishment often comes from what's plain, filling, timeless. Next, we'll sift through another pantry staple that shaped frugal family meals across decades: liver and onions. Hardly the glamour dish of today's menus, but once the hero of Depression-era nutrition. Back then, liver was the affordable powerhouse in protein, loaded with iron, vitamin A, and everything scarce in a starving nation. The humble slice of liver, quick seared till just a hint of pink inside, was paired with golden, caramelized onions, simple but rich, filling more stomachs with fewer quarters. Your mom's skillet would sizzle as that sharp, slightly metallic smell filled the kitchen, a scent that screams making do and respect for every scrap of meat. This wasn't just dinner, it was a survival ode, a reminder that even in poverty, meat was honored, not wasted. That sweet bitterness of onions softened the liver's robust bite, creating a balance both familiar and necessary. Eating liver meant more than nourishment. It was an affirmation of resilience, making cheap cuts stretch like gold. Contrast that with today's palate, where liver is a niche delicacy, often avoided or transformed far beyond its roots. Now, the sacredness of meat has blurred, replaced by convenience cuts and an abundance few imagined then. Yet, those who remember the Depression era cherish liver and onions as a gritty emblem of strength, a dish that carried families through the toughest times with quiet dignity. As kitchens grew louder and supermarket aisles fuller, liver quietly stepped back, leaving behind a legacy stitched in taste and tenacity. Next, we'll step into another humble meal turned nostalgic treasure, revealing how everyday foods once fed more than just hunger. In the 1930s, macaroni and cheese meant scavenging the pantry for elbow macaroni, a meager splash of milk, and just a sprinkle of cheese, often whatever scraps were affordable. It was poverty's comfort food, simple, creamy, and made to stretch, not to overwhelm. Your mom stirred the pale, thin cheese sauce cautiously, knowing this small casserole had to feed the whole family without luxuries. The oven's warmth mingled with the faint aroma of melted cheese and breadcrumbs, a rare sensory hug amid the tough Depression days. Fast forward to today, the scene shifts. Bright orange powdered packets and precisely portioned noodles promise rapid satisfaction. Just boil, mix a neon cheese powder, and you're done. No stirring from scratch, no milk measuring anxiety. The boxed mac and cheese is convenience incarnate. A quick fix after a long day, but it's missing the ritual, the hands-on creation that made the original so much more than food. It's cheese by the numbers, built for speed, not for soul. While modern mac and cheese dazzles with ease and predictable flavor, it lacks the quiet pride and resourcefulness baked into the Depression-era recipe. Each homemade bite carried not just calories, but resilience. Today's convenience is a blessing and a reminder of how the simplest meals once whispered stories of endurance and love. From worn kitchen tables to fluorescent microwaves, macaroni and cheese has traveled a long, emotional journey, one that invites us to remember what it meant to truly savor not just the food, but the making of it. The sticky sweet scent of coconut cake often means summer celebrations and warm kitchen chatter. But what if you didn't have a shred of coconut handy? In Depression-era kitchens, resourceful bakers whipped up a clever fake called the mock coconut cake, without a single flake of tropical magic. Instead, they crushed plain crackers until they resembled shredded coconut's light texture, then tossed those crumbs into flour and vanilla to mimic that distinctive chew and sweetness. The effect wasn't exact, but it brought the spirit of coconut cake to tables stretched thin by hard times. Imagine the clink of glass mixing bowls, the soft tapping of crackers breaking apart, and the careful stirring as flour blends with vanilla in a simple, humble batter. This flour-powered trick turned scarce ingredients into a comforting stand-in, a playful nod to better days when real coconut flakes were a treat. Fast forward to today's kitchens, where bags of tropical coconut are aisles away, often toasted golden, sprinkled atop airy layers of rich buttercream. The mock coconut cake seems quaint, even charmingly quirky, a reminder of how creativity softened hardships and how families made do with what they had. This small act of substitution echoes larger stories of adaptation and warmth, where optimism rose like the cake itself under the humbler but kinder hands of cooks who just wanted a slice of joyful flavor. From cracker crumbs to real flakes, the journey of coconut cake is a sweet symbol of resilience bending through decades. Next, remember how those same kitchens made magic out of canned fruit and pie filling, another survival trick that inspired countless recipes to come. In the quiet kitchens of the 1930s and 40s, when pantry shelves were often sparse, a peculiar dessert bubbled quietly in many homes: water pie. Just eggs, sugar, water, a dash of vanilla, and a crisp pie crust. No cream, no milk, just a liquid custard that set into a shimmering, jelly-like surprise. Your grandmother might have stirred together a simple custard of beaten eggs, white sugar, and pure water, pouring it into a flaky, often homemade pie shell. Into the oven it went, bubbling and firming gently until that cool, glassy custard formed, a fragile wiggle caught in pale gold. Slice it open, and you'd find an almost translucent custard, a delicate balance of softness and quivering structure, unexpected from such humble ingredients. Water pie was resourcefulness's quiet sigh in times of scarcity, a testament to making sweetness out of very little. Savory rich custards were luxuries, but this watery wedge, often flavored with a whisper of vanilla or nutmeg, carried a secret joy amid poverty's grip. It was an edible hope, simple, economical, and oddly comforting. Today's custards often drown in cream, rich creams, and flamboyant flavors. But water pie reminds us how tenderness can bloom even when the cupboards are bare. As ovens glow with endless recipe options now, water pie is a whisper from history's kitchen, a shimmer of resilience and sweetness found in the simplest things. Next, we'll taste a more indulgent cousin, the golden creamy pumpkin pie, rich with fall's embrace. Dried beef gravy smells like a southern winter kitchen, rich, salty, and a little smoky. That pantry staple, salted dried beef, was once your mom's secret weapon against hunger and tight budgets. Thin strips of beef, cured and dried, stored for months, then rehydrated slow and cozy in a thick, cream-based gravy. When the sauce bubbled on the stove, you knew biscuits or hot mashed potatoes wouldn't be far behind. That gravy had a flavor punch nobody expected. Salty, a touch tangy, creamy comfort in every bite. In homes where fresh meat was a luxury, dried beef was a versatile backdrop for countless meals, proof that clever preservation kept families fed through lean times. You'd scoop it onto a bed of steaming biscuits or smother fluffy potatoes, a humble feast that stretched goodwill and pantry staples alike. Today's gravies lean on fresh roasts and drippings, or even fancy mushroom reductions for the daring. Creamy dried beef gravy isn't a staple anymore, but it stands as a tasty reminder of wartime ingenuity and thrifty kitchens. A bridge to an era when preserving, repurposing, and stretching saved meals and often memories. Next time you taste a rich cream sauce, think of the dried beef grains hiding in your grandma's recipe box, waiting for their turn on the dinner plate. Crackling under your fingertips, those simple saltine crackers were more than just a snack during the Great Depression. They were a lifeline. Thin slices of cheese, shaved so delicately they almost melted just by touching the crackers, brought a faint salty aroma in the air that made a humble meal feel like a small luxury. Every bite balanced a crunch with a creamy, subtle tang, protein and carbs stretched to nourish a family on the edge of hardship. No fancy spreads or artisan varieties here, just thrift and ingenuity. A single block of processed American or cheddar cheese stretched over a whole box of crackers, making a snack last through school recess or a hard morning of chores. It was the kind of food that didn't shout but quietly settled in your stomach and your soul. Fast forward to today's cheese boards, brimming with brie, camembert, aged Gouda, and an array of crackers, nuts, and fruit. They're invitations to linger, to savor, and to impress guests with variety. Yet, beneath all that elegance, the spirit is the same, sharing simple joys through cheese and crunch. The nostalgia of those Depression-era pairings reminds us that sometimes the quietest comforts hold the deepest warmth. Next, we'll explore another slice of everyday survival, the art of stretching a meal when every bite counted. Whoopie pies were the original budget-friendly treat that turned humble pantry staples into pure delight. Back in the Depression era, when money was tight and fancy desserts rare, families discovered a simple magic. Two soft, round cakes sandwiched with fluffy, sweet filling made from sugar, shortening, and a dash of vanilla. The cakes were often molasses or chocolate flavored, with a tender crumb that slipped apart with ease. Little cakes perfect for small hands and big smiles. Kids would rush to the kitchen, drawn by the smell of cocoa and vanilla warmth. Mixing in the air, your mom might have grabbed a dollop of that marshmallow-like filling with a spoon, sliding it between two cakey discs, and suddenly, dessert was a celebration. No frills, no fuss. Just the sweet, pillowy goodness delivering a moment of joy during hard times. Fast forward, and whoopie pies have blossomed into gourmet treats. Today's versions come with delicate cream cheeses, buttercream frosting, and layers of decadent flavor that would baffle your Depression-era grandma. They might sparkle with powdered sugar or sport fancy fillings like salted caramel or espresso cream. Yet at their core, still that same simple joy of cake and filling meeting as a small but satisfying delight. The whoopie pie reminds us how a simple idea can outlast eras, proving that deliciousness doesn't need to be complicated. And with that comforting thought, the next sweet memory awaits. Maybe a flashback to the classic soda fountain ice cream floats that followed these humble pies in dessert lore. The scent of warm, freshly baked bread slips through the kitchen, but it's what follows that stirs a memory of true comfort. Imagine a thick slice of crusty bread, still steaming from the oven, held over a small skillet of shimmering, golden drippings, rendered fat from pork or beef, the precious treasure saved after a hearty roast. The bread soaks up the glistening fat, soaking into every crevice, becoming juicy and heavy, but never soggy. Each bite bursts with richness, smoky, savory, and deeply satisfying. This wasn't just a treat. It was survival fuel. In times when meat was a luxury, these drippings were a vital source of energy for working hands and tired bodies. Your mom's hands, greasy but proud, would often serve this with a sprinkle of salt or a dollop of molasses. Odd but perfect companions for this humble feast. The drippings, sometimes called cracklings, when the crispy bits joined the party, were cherished morsels. Nothing was wasted, and flavor was king. Today, the idea of eating pure fat-soaked bread makes modern nutritionists cringe. Low-fat, clean eating trends pushed away such indulgences. Yet, in that simple act lies a story of resilience. How every crumb and drip was a small celebration amid hardship. It was a gourmet fat feast that connected families to their roots and their rationed realities. A dinner plate poetry written in grease and gratitude. As kitchens evolved and calorie counting began, that ritual transformed. But the echo of bread and drippings still calls from the past, inviting us to remember the taste of survival. Tangy, chunky, and packed with garden goodness, Depression-era chow chow was the thrift-conscious relish everyone could make at home. When your backyard or community garden overflowed with cabbage heads, green beans, and fiery peppers, none went to waste. Instead, they were chopped, boiled, and jarred in a pungent vinegar brine, turning surplus veggies into a lively, crunchy chow chow pickle. No fancy spices here, just the simple alchemy of sour, sweet, and spicy, coaxed out by simmering vinegar, sugar, and mustard seed. Grandma's jars lined the pantry shelf, their crackling seals promising a burst of sharp garden-fresh flavor with every spoonful. Chow chow was more than condiment. It was an edible symbol of frugality and resourcefulness during hard times, a communal craft shared among neighbors, exchanging recipes and peppers. The ritual of pickling was a social event with conversation bubbling over bubbling pots and glass jars steaming on windowsills, sun catching like jewels. Today, boutique pickle makers play with unique blends, lavender and jalapeno or smoked garlic and dill. But the vintage charm of Chow Chow's depression roots fades in that artisan aisle. Store-bought versions often sanitize flavor for mass appeal, missing the rustic bite or the connection to that garden soil beneath your fingers. What's lost is more than taste. It's the spirit of shared subsistence, the hope tucked in a jar against lean days ahead. Toting home a jar of chow chow today invites a quiet honoring of communal kitchens and thrift, a crunchy reminder of resilience etched in vinegar and vegetables as our next story stirs to life. Potato scraps weren't tossed away in the 1950s kitchen. They were prized gold. Your grandmother's worn grater would coax every ounce from peels and ends, turning humble spuds into steaming, ribby potato fritters. These were more than leftovers. They were comfort on a plate, fried golden in butter or bacon fat, their crackling edges promising warmth on chilly evenings. No fancy toppings needed, just a dollop of sour cream or applesauce passed around the table. The kitchen smelled of sizzling goodness, and laughter bubbled as kids waited for their share. These fritters were thrifty miracles. Waste transformed into family fuel. Fast forward to today, and the potatoes stage is glammed up. Gourmet latkes now shimmer under delicate drizzles of creme fraiche, crowned with glossy, salty caviar that's as much art as food. Restaurants serve them with smoked salmon curls and microgreens, a far cry from the simple, skillet-fried stacks of decades past. Yet, beneath the luxe presentation, the latke's soul remains, the humble shredded potato crisped to perfection. Each bite is a bridge between old kitchen traditions and modern culinary swagger. Both dishes honor the potato's transformative magic, turning simplicity into celebration. One feeds growing children, the other dazzles discerning palates. But whether it's grandma's pan or a chic bistro plate, the crackle of a fried potato reminds us greatness often starts from the scraps we refuse to waste. Steam curls from a bubbling pot of apple scraps jelly, translucent amber gold shimmering in grandma's worn enamel saucepan. The scraps, peels, cores, bits tossed into the pot after peeling crisp, sweet-tart apples. Simmered slow with sugar and a hint of cinnamon, this jelly was a fragrant jewel born from thrift, not excess. No fruit wasted here, just transformation. Strained clear, it spread glassy smooth on freshly buttered toast, a delicate reminder of home frugality and simple pleasure. Fast forward to today's kitchen counters, cluttered with mason jars filled with vibrantly chunky artisan jams, blackberry thyme, fig ginger, or rhubarb vanilla. Thick with ripe fruit chunks, these jams shout boldness, crafted with a chef's flourish and farmer's market pride. Hand-picked berries, slow-cooked to preserve every nuance of flavor, they embody a modern love of abundance and indulgence. But in that old apple scraps jelly lives an ethic the artisan craze sometimes forgets: resourcefulness. When you spread that pale gold shimmer, You taste not just apples, but a time when stretching ingredients was a point of pride, a daily ritual of care and respect for the harvest. Today's jams dazzle the palate. Yesterday's jelly fed body and soul with quiet restraint. From humble scraps to luscious globs of flavor, fruit has traveled from necessity to craft. Yet, maybe it's in that gentle, clear jelly that the true heart of homemade lives, an echo of thrift woven with love, a reminder that sweetness can come from what we almost threw away. You wake up to the sizzle and pop of bacon in the cast iron skillet, the aroma thick and mouth-watering. Before the days of almond milk lattes and single-origin pour-overs, Sundays meant one sacred ritual, stirring a spoonful of shimmering bacon fat into your strong black coffee. This wasn't about gourmet, it was about survival, a rich, sustaining drink born in kitchens where cream was a luxury and a full belly was a prize. Your mom poured the hot coffee into a sturdy mug, spooned in bacon fat still warm from the morning breakfast, and stirred until it melded, smoky, velvety, nourishing. The flavor? Unexpected depth meeting familiar fat and salt, a rebel against bitter plainness. It woke you up differently, not just alert, but fueled for the hard day ahead. Now, the coffee world dazzles with endless variety. Fruity Ethiopian beans, velvety Colombian blends, and baristas who dance steam wands like maestros. Today's specialty coffees arrive swirled with oat milk foam, drizzled with caramel, dusted with cinnamon, or adorned with latte art. Instagram-ready moments made for leisurely sips, not quick survival. They celebrate taste, trends, and ritualized indulgence, a far cry from that smoky spoonful of old-school sustenance. Yet, when you think back to the humble bacon-fat coffee, you feel that tether, a smoky, stubborn bridge to mornings forged in thrift and grit, where flavor was comfort and coffee was grit. Tomorrow, we delve into the childhood sweet of post-war sodas, a fizzy pop of hope in a sugar-starved time. Jiggling on the buffet table, the gelatin mold salad was once the centerpiece of Depression-era festivities. Picture a translucent, neon-hued ring studded with shiny canned green peas and pimento peppers, shimmering under harsh kitchen lights. Your mom might have sliced strawberries or pineapple tidbits suspended mid-wobble, surrounded by a suspiciously sweet bright orange gelatin. These salads weren't about flavor sophistication, they were about hope, trying to stretch meager rations into a hopeful celebration. Back then, the pantry shelf life champions, like Knox Gelatin and Connecticut Del Monte vegetables, turned the humble gatherings into something special. Even with scarce ingredients, families constructed edible sculptures that hinted at abundance, a festive defiance in the face of hard times. The wobbly shapes, molded in plastic ring molds or vintage glass bowl forms, tapped into a silent resourcefulness that defined the era's kitchens. Fast forward to today, the gelatin mold has been reborn. Top chefs are sculpting savory jelly art with consommes, fresh herbs, and delicate crab meat, transforming the humble salad into a show-stopping entree. Crystal-clear aspics glisten with garden-fresh vegetables and edible flowers, plated on sleek modern serveware. But somewhere beneath that gourmet polish, the charm of the old-school jiggling salad remains intact, a quirky nod to perseverance in food form. Though texture and taste have evolved, that gelatin mold is still a nostalgic window, linking you to times when even a simple, wobbly salad was a small celebration of hope and creativity. In the days when every crumb counted, Cinnamon pilaf was more than just a dish. It was a little celebration on a humble plate. Picture your mom pulling out a small bowl of leftover dried fruit, raisins, chopped apricots, maybe a few currants, rescued from the pantry. Into the simmering pot of plain white rice went a cinnamon stick, gently infusing the grains with warmth and a hint of sweetness. This wasn't just cooking, it was alchemy, transforming leftovers into a feast that hinted at holiday cheer even in the grayest times. The scent of cinnamon swirling through the kitchen air was a signal that comfort was near. The soft popping of raisins, rehydrating, the subtle crackle of spiced grains absorbing every flavored drop. It was a small ritual of making do and making merry. A sprinkle of sugar, sometimes a splash of butter, rounded out the dish, turning basic staples into a nostalgic melody of taste and memory. Fast forward to today, and pilaf has gone global. Saffron's golden glow, cardamom's floral whispers, crunchy toasted nuts, and fresh crisp veggies from the farmer's market make appearances. Pilafs now celebrate abundance and variety, a far stretch from the wartime pantries that birthed cinnamon pilaf. Yet, that simple spiced rice, born from scraps and necessity, still holds a special place in hearts, a reminder that warmth and festivity can be crafted even from scarcity. Next, we dive into how the humble lunchbox evolved from tinfoil wrapped sandwiches to Instagram-ready bento boxes, bursting with color and culture. In the quiet hum of a modest kitchen, the scent of penny bread and simmering lentils carries the echoes of the Depression era. Here, simple ingredients, flour, potatoes, onions, were transformed by clever hands into nourishing meals that stretched every precious resource. The Depression's forgotten recipes aren't just about food. They're lessons in resourcefulness, teaching you how to make a feast when the pantry looks bare. When your mom pulled out old cookbooks or scribbled notes passed down from her mother, it wasn't just nostalgia. It was survival and love baked into every bite. These frugal kitchens practiced gratitude, turning every scrap of leftover into new life. A slice of bread dried for croutons, vegetable peels tossed into homemade broth. This wasn't scarcity alone, it was a creativity born from necessity. Recipes like depression cake, made without eggs or milk, or mock apple pie, crafted from crackers, reveal the ingenuity that sustained families. Today, modern cooking often revolves around abundance. Fridges bursting with fresh produce, ready-made sauces, and a vast grocery aisle. But the echo of those humble meals which whispers that love and care don't require extravagance. In a world of plenty, remembering these recipes is a nod to simplicity's quiet strength. Proof that sometimes the richest meals come from the plainest ingredients. Simple sustenance wasn't just food, it was a foundation of resilience. As you step into tomorrow's kitchen, carry forward the warmth and wisdom born of frugality, and maybe, just maybe, save a recipe or two where scarcity meets heart.